Hi everyone, good morning. Can you see my screen everyone? Can you hear me? So am I audible? Can you confirm anyone? Fine. So we have completed AWS, right? So today we are going to start DevOps. So this is a DevOps introduction. Okay. Yeah. So in AWS we discussed most of the services, right? So nearly 42 services we discussed. Everyone should practice that. Okay. So if you are good in AWS, you can easily handle Azure and GCP, right? So every platform, all the cloud platforms are same functionality. So terminology would be little different. Okay. So if you practice AWS, you can handle any cloud platform, not only Azure, not only GCP, not only other platform. So any platform you can handle if you are good in AWS. So that is why everyone should focus on AWS, right? You can practice AWS. So today onwards, we are going to work on DevOps, right? So today's introduction to DevOps. Yeah. So in DevOps, what is our role? What we will do? So what are the tools we are going to work on? And what are the services, right? So as a DevOps engineer, what are the challenges we face? So how can we coordinate with the developers, testers, right? As a DevOps engineer, so what is our role and responsibility, right? So on which tools we are going to work on, how many tools will be covered, right? So these are all we can discuss here. Okay, fine. So developer develop the code in their local workspace. Okay, so normally developers they always work on the coding part, application development. Okay, so these are the, for example, these are the two developers. They work on their local workspace, right? So developer A, developer B. Developer A, developer B, they work on their local workspace. So what is workspace anyone? It is the local workspace where we start our work, where the developers start their work, which is a local workspace. Okay. So this we can say local Git. We can say Git local. Git local. Okay. Yeah. So basically, what is Git? What is Git? Git is a repository tool or version control tool. Git is a repository tool or version control tool. What is a repository? Where we store our source code, where we prepare our data, where we keep our data, right? So which is nothing but a repository. Next one is version control. What is version control? So when we talk about version control, there are some parameters are available here. Parameters. Okay. So what are those parameters? Like who did changes, when did changes, what purpose did changes. So based on these comments, Git will track the versioning. Who did changes? Ram did changes. When did changes? By 8 a.m. By 8 a.m. IST did some changes. So what purpose did changes? Due to some production issue, did some changes. Okay. So based on these comments, Git will track the versioning. So developer develop the code in their local Git, right? So 10 developers are working on the same requirement, same application development. So who is doing what? How can we identify? How can we identify? By using the version control tool, version control system. So version control system track the changes. Okay. So developer develop the code in their local Git. Once development is completed, so they push the code to remote repository, which is GitHub. Thus we can say GitHub. So what is GitHub? GitHub is a remote server, remote repository. So local repository, remote repository. Remote repository is a remote server. So why we require remote server here, remote repository here? So normally, so in the CI/CD flow, in the build and release process, so we pull the code from remote repository only. Okay. So developer develop the code in their local Git. Once development is completed, they push the code to a remote repository, which is GitHub. GitHub, or we can say a remote repository. Okay. Yeah. So once the code is moved to a remote repository, in this flow, our next tool is Jenkins. So Git and GitHub both are completely developer tools. Developers always develop the code on their local Git, right? So once development is completed, what they will do? They push the code to GitHub. So GitHub is a remote server. GitHub is the remote server. Fine. So after that, so we have Jenkins. What is Jenkins? What Jenkins will do? Jenkins is the CI/CD tool. Jenkins is the CI/CD tool. What is CI/CD? Continuous integration and continuous deployment or continuous delivery. Okay. So in DevOps, we have multiple tools are there. In DevOps, we have multiple tools are there. So all the tools are individual tools. One tool will not communicate other tool. Jenkins is the mediator tool. It will communicate all the tools. It will integrate all the tools by installing plugins. So you're following, right, everyone? So in DevOps, we have multiple tools are there. Different tools are there, right? So all the tools are individual tools. One tool will not communicate other tool. Jenkins is the mediator tool. It will integrate all the tools. It will communicate all the tools by installing plugins. What is plugin? Plugin is a package installer, right? So here, for example, this code I want to pull from GitHub to Jenkins. So the code is available in the GitHub. This code I want to pull from GitHub to Jenkins. Okay. Yeah. So before pulling this code from GitHub to Jenkins, first we need to integrate GitHub with the Jenkins. How can we integrate? By installing plugin. By installing plugin, we can integrate GitHub with the Jenkins. Okay. So in Jenkins, we need to install the plugin, GitHub plugin. So once we install the plugin, Jenkins will start communicating with the GitHub, right? So after that, what we will do? We prepare some jobs here. We prepare the job and we trigger the job. Once we trigger the job, so this code will be pulled from GitHub to Jenkins. Once we prepare the job, once we trigger the job, the code will be pulled from GitHub to Jenkins. Once we pull this code we can say raw code. Raw code. What is raw code? Which is unstructured code, unformatted code. So raw code is the unstructured code, unformatted code. Right? So this raw code will not understand by target servers, application servers. Finally, this raw code should be deployed onto any web server or any application server, right? So this is, we can say, app server, application server, or Tomcat server, app server or Tomcat server, right? So this code should be deployed onto Tomcat, but this is raw code, right? Raw code will not understand by application servers. So because this is unstructured code, unformatted code, that we cannot deploy directly. So that is why we can integrate one more tool, which is Maven. Maven is the build tool. Maven is the build tool which will generate artifacts. Maven generates artifacts. What is artifact? Artifact is the archive file. So archive file. What is archive file? It is the binary file, right? So Maven generates the artifact. Maven takes the raw code and it will convert into artifact. So when we talk about developers, development, right? So we have, for example, Java development, Java development, right? So in the Java development, three types of developments are available. First one is desktop application development, web application development, and also enterprise app development, like this, right? So we have three types of developments are there. For example, so Maven, yeah, so developers are working on desktop application development. So desktop application, when we talk about desktop application, so desktop application is the application which will work in our local system, local laptop or desktop. So for example, calculator, okay, or else paintbrush, calculator, paintbrush. These are all, we can say, desktop applications. Okay, yeah. So if the developers are working on desktop application, Maven generates jar file, Java archive file. So if the application team is working on web applications, it generates, Maven generates war file. Yeah. So if the application team, if the developers are working on enterprise application, it generates EAR file, enterprise archive file. So based on the application development, Maven generates respective artifacts. Okay. For example, Maven generated here war file, web application, or yeah, war file generated here. This war file will be give back to Jenkins. Jenkins push that war file to Tomcat, our application server here. We deploy the war file on Tomcat application server. So clear, right, everyone? Up to here it is clear, right, everyone? Any questions here up to here? Anyone having any question? This is we can say build and release process. In the live application, we perform the activities like this. Okay. In the live application, we can deploy the applications like this. So any questions up here, anyone? Is it clear to you? you have any questions, you can ask me. Then we'll jump into next one. Fine. Next one. So in the live application, the code will be flow like this. Okay. In the live, the code will be, yeah, developer develop the code here. That will be pushed to GitHub. So from here, Jenkins will take the code, convert into one artifact, which is raw code to artifact, it will convert Maven. So once Maven converted to artifact, that artifact will be given back to Jenkins. Jenkins will push the artifact to application server. So that artifact will be deployed onto application server here. Okay. Yeah. So this will be happened in the live application like Flipkart, Amazon shopping site, right? Myntra, Meesho. For example, there is a Flipkart. In the Flipkart, for example, these are all we can say microservices, right? So, for example, if you take here, yeah, for example, these are the products available. So, developer develop the code in their local workspace, local Git. Once the development is completed, what they will do? They push the code to GitHub. Once the code is pushed to GitHub, Jenkins will take and and it will hand over to Maven to convert into artifact. That will be, yeah, give back to Jenkins. That artifact will be deployed onto application server. So once the artifact is deployed onto application server, this changes will be happen. This pricing changes, right? Product changes, right? Product not available. For sometimes so out of stock it will show you, right? Out of stock. That will be modified by developers. Developers they modify the code in their local Git. Okay. So these are all we can say microservices. Okay. So if the developers want to update this product or they want to update the pricing, what they will do? They modify this code in their local Git. Right. Once they modified, they push to a remote repository. From there, it will take by Jenkins, convert into artifact by using Maven, deploy into application server. So once it is deployed, this changes will be happen. So clear, right, everyone? These changes will be happened once the code is deployed. Okay. So this is a live application. So non-live applications also available. So sometimes we work on developers work on non-live applications also. So those non-live applications will be, yeah. So for that we require one more tool here for non-live applications. So one more tool which is we can say Nexus repo. Nexus repo. So in this Nexus repo, we can store the artifacts. Whatever artifacts generated by Maven, those we can store in the Nexus repo, right? So Nexus is the repository to store our artifacts. Nexus is the repository to store our artifacts, right? So whenever we have release, by the time this artifacts will be pushed to the respective target servers. Okay. So whatever artifact generated by Maven, those we can store in the Nexus here, like war file, jar file, or whatever files. Those we can push to the respective target servers whenever we have release. Whenever we have release, by the time we can move this we can move this artifacts to the target servers and we deploy onto target application servers. Fine. Yeah, it is fine. So here developer develop the code, testers test the code, right? So DevOps will deploy the code on respective servers, but where the testing, where the code will be reviewed, where the code will be reviewed. So we attach one more tool here, which is, we can say, Sonar code review tool. This we can say Sonar code review tool. Okay, Sonar code review. What is Sonar? Sonar is the tool to review the code, right? So normally every project team, they maintain some code standards. So to maintain the code standards, so we require one code review tool. So in the market, we have so many tools are there, like like Sonar code review tool. So many tools are there, code review tool. Sonar is the very popular tool. Sonar, what it will do, it will review the code, it will provide you the report. So in the Sonar, developers, what they will do, they create some metrics. So what is metric? They create some conditions, rules, right? If any duplicate lines are there, errors, fixes, hot fixes, right? So always developers, what they will do, they review the code by using Sonar code review. If any issues are there, errors are there, duplicate lines are there, Sonar code review, what it will do, it will provide one report. So based on the report, developers fix the issues, testers fix the issues, then they can move forward. They can move the code, right? So this flow is very, very important. So tomorrow we are going to start Git. Okay. So tomorrow we are going to start Git and GitHub, right? So this will take 5 days. Git and GitHub will take 5 days. Okay. After that, we'll jump into Jenkins. After that, Maven, Nexus, Apache Tomcat, Sonar code review. So after that, we are going to start advanced tools like Ansible, Terraform, Grafana. Yeah. So these are the very advanced tools, very core tools, right? So Ansible is the configuration management tool. So what is configuration management? By using Ansible, we can automate any activity. We can change the configurations by using Ansible. We can work on the configurations by using Ansible. We work on the deployments by using Ansible, right? So next one is Docker. Docker is the container tool. Container tool. So what is container? So container is it is a box. We can move anywhere, we can use anywhere. Okay. It is the advanced virtual machine. Containers are advanced virtual machines. Okay. So Kubernetes, what is Kubernetes? It is the container orchestration tool. So advanced Docker. Terraform. What is Terraform? Terraform is the infrastructure automation tool. So these are the four advanced tools are available. Okay. So if you are good in any one of the tool, you can easily crack your interview. In these four tools, if you are good in Kubernetes or Docker or Terraform or Ansible, you can easily crack your interview. Along with that, this flow is required. Okay. So Grafana and Prometheus, these tools we can say these are the monitoring tools. Monitoring tools. By using this, we can monitor our by using this we can monitor our Kubernetes Docker. Clear, right, everyone? Right. So this flow is very very important. So entire DevOps we follow this flow. This DevOps tools and all we can have nearly 50 days to 50 days it takes. So if you cover weekends, if we cover weekends within 40 days also we can complete. 45 days within 45 days. So we can cover weekends also, Saturday, Sunday sometimes. Sometimes we can cover Saturdays and Sundays. Fine. Any questions here, anyone? This is just introduction. Okay. So tomorrow we are going to start first tool in DevOps, which is Git. Git is the very popular repository tool. Anyone joined for only DevOps today? Anyone joined for only DevOps today? Can you share your WhatsApp number and email address in the chat? Only for DevOps, anyone joined? How AWS play role here? Yeah, good question. So we need to create AWS infrastructure. On top of that, we need to deploy these tools. Okay. So Git we can install in our local system, but Jenkins onwards, we need to create one AWS server. On top of that, we need to install Jenkins. Even Maven also, Nexus also, Tomcat also, Ansible, Docker, Kubernetes, Terraform also. So all the tools we can integrate on top of the AWS only. Understand, right? Think Sagar. AWS is the infrastructure, right? So on top of that, we deploy the tools. So clear, right, everyone? This flow is very important. So everyone should follow this. Everyone should understand this flow. So tomorrow we are going to start first tool, which is very very important tool, repository tool, Git. So Git is the completely developer tool. So our role starts from Jenkins. Our role starts from Jenkins. Okay. So Jenkins is the CI/CD tool. When will start the software installation? Software installation. Which software installation you want to install? Hari Prasad. Which software you want to install? Yeah. So Jenkins onwards. Deployments, right? You're talking about deployments, right? Jenkins onwards. Fine. Yeah. So this is just introduction. This flow is very very important. Fine. So you can practice AWS services. You can understand this flow. So tomorrow we start DevOps tools. Okay. So Git and GitHub. So Git and GitHub we required as a DevOps engineer. So we need to understand Git and GitHub also. So because while attending interviews, we get some questions, interview questions on Git, right? So the Git and GitHub both are completely developer tools. But as a DevOps engineer, so we need to understand Git and GitHub also. Okay, fine. So we can wind up here. So tomorrow onwards, so yeah, complete 1 hour we can spend. This is introduction. Okay, fine. Any more questions, anyone? Up to here? Fine. Yeah. So we can wind up here. Thank you all.